Okay, welcome to our first project in ceramics. It's the clay turtle. I've shown you some examples of finished turtles. Now I'll show you how to put it together successfully. You'll have your clay already given to you. You'll need a cutoff wire, a plaster bat, a piece of sheetrock to support your project in or on when you put it in your locker, water with sponge, tools to score, and I'll talk about scoring and slipping, and then possibly some sculpting tools. Okay, we first of all open our clay. I'm not sure if you can see this from the camera angle that I'm at right now, but I have my clay opened up, and instead of gouging it out with my fingers, use the cutoff wire to cut the clay that you need. Always important, when you're finished using your clay out of the bag, wrap it up and tuck it in, okay? Now for the turtle, we'll need 2 front fins, 2 back fins, a tail, and a neck, but most importantly, the shell. So we're going to start by making the shell first. And what we do is we make it into a ball, the clay into a ball, about the size of a golf ball, maybe just a little bit larger, and it all depends on the size of the finished turtle that you want, okay? Now some of you, I don't know what it is about some people, their fingers will dry this clay out and it will start getting stress cracks really fast. But what you're going to do is once you have it into a circle, you're going to pinch it with your thumb pushing down and your fingers pulling out. So you end up with a nice open bowl shape. That will be our shell. And you don't want to get it too thin right on the edges or else this portion will crack on you. Now if it starts cracking right here, this is where you get your fingers wet. Don't get it sopping wet. You're just sponging some moisture onto the clay to close up those stress cracks. And you're slowly and gradually getting the shell thinner and thinner. You don't want just a solid shell. Too thick, the clay will crack or explode in the kiln. And if you need to use the palm of your hand once you have it opened to act as a support or even like a mold to get the shape of the shell that you want, you can do that. Now the turtle that I'm demonstrating is a sea turtle. Some people might want to, instead of using fins, they might want to add feet to the bottom of the shell to make it a land turtle. It's up to you. Like every project in this class, there is not one cookie cutter finished product that it has to look like. So there is our shell. We'll put it off to the side. The next step is to make the components, or the legs or the fins or whatever you want to call them. We need 2 larger amounts of clay, 2 smaller amounts of clay. And like we started the shell, we start by rolling a ball or a pebble, just like that. We'll put those off to the side. Do the same thing for the back flippers. And I know they don't look much like flippers yet, but they will. Okay. We'll deal with the head and the neck once we get the fins on. Now, to make the fins, we're going to start with the front fins. You're going to take it, instead of rolling it into a pebble, you push down a little harder on one side so it looks a little like, almost like a baby carrot that you get in the grocery store. Once it's like that, again, if you start getting stress cracks on any portion of your project, just a little bit of water to smooth those out. Not too much. You don't want a muddy mess. Okay, once it's like this, instead of pushing it and flattening it out on a flat surface, to make it look more organic or natural, I'm taking the palm of my hand and just flattening it out. So our front fin looks like this. We do the same thing for the other side. And it's okay if they don't quite match. See how one is a little bit longer than the other? You always push on that a little bit more to get the right shape. But you can adjust that as far as adding it to the bottom of the shell anyway. Then we do the same thing for the two back flippers. Put them off to the side. Now here is a very important part of building with clay. It's called slipping and scoring, or scoring and slipping. Now I don't have slip with me, but what slip is, and I'll talk about it more and more, is just liquid clay mixed with water, so it's a creamy consistency. I'm just going to use water. That works, but slipping works a little bit better. But this is where the front fins are going to be added, and this is scoring. We're adding texture to the shell on the portion that it is going to be, or the portion the fins are going to be added to. Now notice I'm not scoring right here on the edge. I don't want to see the score lines on the shell once we have it finished. So in the inside, and we'll do the same thing for the back two fins. So this is ready to go. And then where the fins are going to be attached, we score again. Notice how much texture I'm putting in. It's just not one or two lines like this. It's a good amount of texture. Okay. Now what we're doing is pushing the two pieces of clay. If they're not scored together, they just like this, but if they're scored together, the surfaces will make a bond like this and it'll be very strong, okay? So once we have the shell scored, we're going to add some water, or if you have slip made, you can do this with slip, and that's slipping and scoring. Then we push on the fin where it's going to be added. And we do the same thing to the other side. And now this is an important part also. You just can't stick it on there and expect it to stay. You need to support it, and then with your thumb or a finger, you're going to push that in so the clay is bonded together. And then at this point, you can adjust the direction of the fins, okay? And just kind of do a dry run, see how it sits, okay? That's pretty good. And remember, this is a very quick demonstration. If I was really wanting to have a nice finished result, I would probably really pay attention to the size and shape that I really want. But I'm doing this all after school before a meeting that I have in just a few minutes, okay? So we have the back fins scored. Again, with a little water. That time I got a little crazy with the water. You don't want to have too much or else it gets weak. Adding water to clay might seem like it will just strengthen it because it smooths it out, but it also weakens it if you put too much. So we put the back fin, and the bottom of the turtle won't look like a turtle. We don't have the bottom, and we won't make the bottom even. But when it sits, it will look like a turtle. And again, we're gonna manipulate the angle and then make sure it sits like a sea turtle would be sitting. Now I'm not going to add a tail. A lot of the times my examples I don't put tails on because they're little, they're thin, and they break a lot, and they just look bad if there's just a broken off tail. So I sometimes just avoid putting the tail. You're more than welcome to put a little tail in the same way we added the fins. All right, let's put this off to the side. Now for some people, this is the most challenging part. We start out with not as much clay as the head, as the shell for the head, but more than the fins. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the neck and the head all in one piece. Now, if your palms are getting all what people call ashy or dusty, just add a little water to the palms of your hands so when you roll clay, it doesn't crack on you. Now this neck and the head is going to appear to be almost too long, but you'll see how it works in just a second. But it has a little knob on this side, and then it tapers, not too thin, but it's going to fit into the shell like this. So where it's going to be, you got to figure out where you want the head to be. Okay, it's going to be right here, and it won't look very good just sticking straight out, and I'll show you how to make it look more natural. Okay, so we know it's going to fit right in between the two fins, and the scored area is going to be right here. Now this is the part of the project that always breaks off in the drawing process if you're not very careful. Oh, scored the wrong area. And if that happens, you might need to do the whole thing over again, okay? So we're going to put the neck and the head in the turtle like that. And again, supporting it with your palm of the hand, and your thumb is pushing so the scored surfaces are bonding together, just like that. Now, right now, it looks not very good. We need to have this turtle head come up to look a little bit more like a turtle. So, very carefully, if you try to do this step too fast, it will crack, and you can already see it stress cracking here. Again, add just a little bit of water as you're bending it forward. So right now, the head's starting to look a little bit more like my examples. Now to make it look like a turtle, we squeeze the head so it almost has a beak-like form. And then with the pen tool, we cut down, then up a little bit, then we pull out. And once it's at this stage, we open up the mouth. And that gives us a little comical look. It looks more like Crush on Finding Nemo. And we can make little eyeballs. And you can add little balls of clay in these sockets if you want, but something simple like that works also. Now at this point, you would let it firm up in your locker overnight, maybe wrapped with a paper towel. But what happens, if you leave it like this, the head will droop. So as you're leaving it for the next day to work the design work on your shells, you might want to take a little ball of clay and just tuck it right underneath the head. You're not scoring it, so it's not going to stick, but that will support the head in such a way that the angle will stay the way it should, okay? That is our basic turtle assignment that we start out with.